Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be talking about Happy Money. It's a book by Ken Honda, and, well, it promises some pretty unconventional wisdom about how we all think about money. So we're going way beyond, the typical tips about budgeting and investing, and we're going to kind of explore how to make our money, well, happy, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it really is fascinating. This book, was originally published in Japan, and it really challenges a lot of the ways that we in the West think about wealth and money.
Yeah, for sure. The book starts out by suggesting that money isn't just a tool, an economic tool or a thing, but it's something that has energy, and it can be happy money or unhappy money, and that really depends on how we earn it and how we spend it. So what are your initial thoughts when you hear this concept of happy money?
Well, it's really intriguing, isn't it? Because so often we talk about money in very practical terms, like what's the interest rate? What are the best investments? Things like that. But Honda's approach in this book, it really goes deeper. It delves into the emotional and even spiritual side of wealth.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we don't talk about very often.
Yeah, for sure. He gives this example, of somebody inheriting a big fortune from a relative, but the relative didn't even like them. So even though it's, a huge amount of money, it's probably got some pretty negative baggage with it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, think about that. And then on the flip side, you've got someone who's earning money. They're doing what they love. They're passionate about it. Even if, it's not a huge salary, that money it's probably infused with a whole different energy, don't you think?
Yeah.
Totally, much more positive energy.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if that kind of positive energy could actually, lead to having more abundance later.
I think so, yeah.
Honda talks about, this idea of money circulating. You receive it with gratitude, and then you spend it with joy, and then, watch it return. But how do we actually put that into practice? I mean, being grateful for, paying a bill, that feels kind of forced, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's where the challenge is, isn't it? But Honda, he suggests this phrase that, well, it sounds simple, but it can really transform how we think about money. He says, "Thank you for coming to me." And he wants us to say this, when we get money, but also when we spend it, even those annoying expenses.
So, instead of me groaning when I get the electricity bill, I should be thanking the money for letting me, have light and heat in my house.
Yeah, precisely. It's a total shift in perspective, right? Instead of seeing money as something we're always chasing after or worrying about losing, we can start to appreciate, what it does for us, how it lets us live our lives, even the mundane parts.
It's like we're acknowledging that money is like this active player in our lives, not just something, passive that we just get and spend.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to put it. And I think when we do that, when we acknowledge it, maybe we treat it differently. We start making choices that are more in line with what we value instead of just chasing the biggest paycheck.
That brings us to another interesting concept in the book, this idea of a money game. Honda says that a lot of us, we're kind of unknowingly playing by these rules, with money, and we got these rules from somewhere, but we didn't consciously choose them.
Yeah, it's like we inherited the rule book. He describes this woman. She spent 20 years climbing that corporate ladder, achieved all the markers of, traditional financial success, and she was just miserable. I mean, she won the game, but it was the wrong game.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't the game she wanted to play.
Yeah. It's kind of a cautionary tale, right? It makes you think about what kind of money game you might be stuck in without even realizing it.
Yeah. And that's why I think, Honda really encourages us to look at our money story. Look at the beliefs, the experiences that have shaped how we view money. What were the messages we got growing up about money? What were our first experiences with earning and spending?
So somebody who grew up hearing money doesn't grow on trees all the time, they might have a completely different money story than somebody whose parents were really generous, and giving to others.
Right, exactly. Those early messages, they can really stay with us, create, deep beliefs about whether there's, enough money or not, whether we're going to have enough. And those beliefs, they drive our financial decisions without us even realizing it.
Okay, so we've got this idea of happy money and unhappy money. We've got this idea of circulation and gratitude, and we've got this money game that we might be trapped in. So where do we go from here? How do we break free from these patterns?
Well, that's where Honda brings in this idea of money EQ, which he says is even more important than, what we think of as traditional financial intelligence, what we call money IQ.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about money EQ. What does that look like in practice?
So it's about developing emotional intelligence when it comes to money. Instead of just focusing on the numbers, we start paying attention to how money makes us feel, how our beliefs are influencing our choices, and whether our financial decisions, they match up with what we truly value.
Okay, so we're talking about this idea of money EQ being, emotionally intelligent about our finances. It seems like that's a pretty big shift from the way, most of us are taught to think about money.
It is. It's a big shift. A lot of us, we're raised to focus on money IQ, knowing how to budget and invest, maximize returns, all that. But money EQ, this goes deeper. It's about how our emotions and beliefs and values all play into, our money decisions.
So if somebody's realizing like, hey, I might have some money IQ, but I don't have a lot of money EQ, where do they even begin to develop that emotional intelligence piece?
Well, I think a good place to start is awareness. Start paying attention to how you feel when you're dealing with money. Do you get stressed when you check your bank balance? Do you feel like excited when you buy something? Like a little rush?
Oh, I know. I definitely feel like a little pang of guilt sometimes when I spend money on something that's, just for fun, even if I can afford it.
There you go. See, that's a perfect example, of how our emotions can get all tied up in our money decisions. And just recognizing those feelings, that's the first step towards understanding how they might be, kind of driving the choices they are making.
So if I realize I'm making decisions based on like fear or guilt or something, how do I shift that?
Well, Honda, he really emphasizes gratitude, even with money. Remember that phrase, "Thank you for coming to me." He says, use that even when you're paying bills. Acknowledge like what you're getting in return for that money.
So like even though I'm giving away money, I can still find something to be grateful for in that exchange. Like instead of being annoyed about my internet bill, I could be thankful for, being connected to the world.
Exactly. You're reframing your perspective. You're not focusing on the loss. You're focusing on what you're receiving. And I think over time, that can really change your whole energy around money, from scarcity to abundance.
And this all kind of goes back to that idea of money circulation, right?
Totally. When we come to money with gratitude and joy, we create this more positive flow. It's not about, hoarding it or being afraid to spend it. It's about letting it move and support, the kind of life we want to live.
And that takes us back to aligning our work with our values. Because, if we're earning money, doing something that feels good and fulfilling, that positive energy, that's got to show up in our finances, right?
Yeah, precisely. Honda tells this story about this guy who leaves this high-paying corporate job. It was just net soul-crushing. And he opens up this little bakery. And he takes a big pay cut. But his passion, his purpose, it just shines through in everything he does. His customers feel it. His employees feel it. And ultimately, his success, his financial success reflects that.
So it's not just about finding a job that pays well. It's about finding work that really, resonates with who you are deep down.
Exactly. When our work and our values, they're aligned. The money we earn, it just carries a different energy. It becomes happy money. Like it flows more easily, more abundantly.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. But what about those of us who are, stuck in jobs that we don't love? I mean, we can't all just quit our jobs tomorrow and go follow our passions.
That's true, but even if you're not in that dream job right now, there are still things you can do to shift your energy around money.
Like what?
Well, you can start by just, noticing what parts of your current job that you do like, what feels meaningful to you. Maybe you've got a great team you work with. Or maybe you're using some skills that you're really passionate about.
Yeah, I can see how focusing on those good parts, even in a not-so-great situation, could help change your mindset.
It can, and it might even open up, possibilities you hadn't even thought of before. Maybe there's a way to leverage those things that you enjoy into a new role at your company. Or maybe it'll spark an idea for a side hustle, something that's, more in line with what you love.
This whole concept of money EQ, this is fascinating. It's like we're being asked to rewrite the rules of the money game, you know?
That's exactly it. Honda wants us to do that. He reminds us, we don't have to play by those rules that were given to us. We can make our own rules. Rules that put happiness and fulfillment and abundance first.
But how do we do that, practically speaking? I mean, how do we actually shift from this mindset of scarcity and fear to one abundance and joy, especially when it comes to our finances?
Well, one of the most powerful tools I think Honda talks about is mindful spending. And this isn't about, depriving yourself or feeling guilty about enjoying your money. It's about, making conscious choices, making sure your spending lines up with your values.
Okay, I'm all about mindful spending, but sometimes it feels like, everything costs money. How do we cultivate that sense of abundance, when we've got bills to pay and responsibilities and unexpected expenses popping up all the time?
I think that's where the idea of enough comes in. It's about recognizing that we already have what we need, even if it doesn't look exactly like what we think we should have, what society tells us we should have.
So instead of like constantly wanting more, we shift to appreciating what we already have.
Exactly. And from that place of gratitude, of contentment, that's where true abundance can really start to flow.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. I'm already starting to look at my own, relationship with money differently and thinking about how I can make it, happier, more fulfilling.
That's great. That's great to hear. And remember, it's a journey. It's not like you reach a destination and you're done. Even small changes, in how you think and act, they can really make a difference in your overall financial well-being.
I like that. It's not about changing everything overnight. It's about, making those small, consistent changes that fit with, with your values and your goals.
Right. And as we build that positive relationship with money, that abundant relationship, it really becomes a tool for creating a life that brings us joy and purpose and fulfillment.
As we've been talking about all these ideas from happy money, from money EQ to mindful spending, there's this one question from the book that keeps coming back to me. It's if money could talk, what would yours say about how you treat it?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a powerful question, isn't it? It really makes you think about how you see money and how you interact with it, like on a deeper level.
I think mine would probably say I'm a little too cautious. Like I try to be responsible, but I sometimes get caught up in worrying about, having enough, and I think I hold on to my money a little too tight. What about you? What do you think your money would say?
That's a good question. I think mine might say I'm a little impulsive sometimes. Like I do love to spend money on experiences and travel and things like that. And I probably need to remind myself to slow down sometimes and think about the long term,
So it sounds like we both have some areas where we could, improve our relationship with money, even if, overall we're pretty good with our finances.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's what I appreciate about Honda's approach in this book. It's not about like beating yourself up for past mistakes or trying to be perfect with money. It's more about recognizing that it's a journey. Our relationship with money is a journey, and there's always room to learn and grow.
Yeah, that's such an important point. It's easy to get caught up in all the rules, like what you should do and what you shouldn't do with your money. But ultimately, it's about finding what works for you, what supports your values and helps you reach your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where this money EQ comes in, right? It's not about following some rigid set of rules. It's about understanding yourself better. How your emotions and your beliefs and your experiences, all of that, how it all affects the way you make decisions about money.
So it's almost like we're creating our own like personalized money philosophy that takes into account not just, our income and expenses, but also our overall well-being.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to put it. It's about a more holistic approach to wealth, I guess. One that considers, the numbers in your bank account, but also, how you're feeling, your sense of purpose, your connection to something bigger than yourself.
It makes me think about that story that Honda told about the guy who quit his corporate job to open that bakery. He probably didn't have as much financial security, at least at first, but he was so clearly driven by his passion, his purpose. Do you think that's ultimately what led to his success?
Yeah, I think so. When you align your actions with what you truly value, you tap into something, something really powerful, a source of energy and creativity. And that energy, it can attract abundance, even if it doesn't always come in the ways that we expect.
So it's not just about like chasing money. It's more about following your passions and trusting that the money will follow.
Exactly. And when you approach money from that place of alignment and trust, I think it can become a really positive force in your life, and in the world. It lets you support the things you care about. It lets you nurture your relationships and create a life that feels, meaningful.
This whole conversation has been honestly like a real eye-opener for me. I'm definitely walking away from this feeling more hopeful, I guess, more possibilities when it comes to my finances.
That's wonderful. And just remember, it's not about being perfect with money. It's about constantly learning and growing and changing.
Ken Honda's Happy Money has definitely given us a lot to think about. It's challenged us to think differently, to go beyond the traditional advice about money, and to really consider, the emotional side, even the spiritual side of wealth. And maybe most importantly, it's reminded us that real abundance, it's not just about how much money you have. It's about the joy and the purpose and the fulfillment you have in your life.
Oh, and as we wrap up our deep dive here, I would just encourage you to keep exploring. Explore your own money story and see what happy money means for you.
Go make your money happy, everybody.